Good evening and welcome to the Monday night edition of the People Show with yours truly, Mark Wallace, your host and facilitator here on intellectualradio.com with you every Monday night at 7 o'clock. And tonight we're going to continue our conversation focusing on the accomplishments of the Biden-Harris administration. We're also going to be talking about a press conference that we have coming up on Friday, July the 19th, and all of the important issues of today. So why don't we get right into it? I want to welcome you to the program and thank you all for tuning in with us. Everything you can make sure that you like and share the program. You also can go to our YouTube page at Mark Wallace, The People's Show, and register there. We certainly appreciate that. If you would subscribe there, it's absolutely free. There's no cost to subscribe to the program. So that is our newest channel there. We certainly appreciate those who've already done so. So if you can't get us on our Facebook page, you can certainly get us at iHeartRadio and Apple Podcasts. That is associated with intellectualradio.com, as well as the other social media outlets. All right, so we've had, unfortunately, some very, very, very sad things that have taken place. Over the weekend, there was a assassination attempt on the former president in Pennsylvania at a Trump rally. And of course, the president of the United States condemned those actions, as we all condemn those actions. I know that there were people who were, making some comments about what took place, and there were some people who hoped that the assassin had been successful, but that is not an appropriate attitude for us to engage in, or have those kinds of thoughts. Although we certainly understand that Donald Trump has fueled a lot of vitriol over the past, 8 years or so, 10 or 12 years, maybe longer, that has brought people to a whole level, which is not a good level, but a whole nother level in terms of being divided and family members breaking up, and or having problems with each other, and people losing friendships as a result of this. So it is it's a serious situation when you look at what is taking place. You look at those sort of things, and you look at where we are now. That you have political differences. They should never become where there is a support for political violence. And the truth is, there have been, and I'm not even going to play them. I have clips, but there were times that Donald Trump incited or certainly encouraged political violence by his rhetoric. And but I think that there were many who were trying to discourage the country from electing a person who had that kind of toxic vitriol that would encourage that kind of behavior. Because when you're in positions of power, what you say matters. People follow people who are in power, and you have people who align themselves with whatever that person or those persons who are in those positions of power would say. And you will have a number of people who will act on whatever the person of power says. So when you have power, you have an extraordinary duty to operate and to manage that position with restraint and certainly with a decorum that encourages the best in people, not to encourage the worst and the weakness in people. And the truth, as we know it, Donald Trump has been very guilty of encouraging that kind of rhetoric, which leads to people who have all kinds of issues, problems, engaging in activity, excuse me, engaging in activity that's counterproductive and that's violent and causes for people to do just the most unseeming things. And what we saw that took place on Saturday night was very, very unfortunate. Again, thankfully, the president didn't get killed, but there were friends and neighbors now who are remembering the firefighter Corey Comparator, who is the man that was shot and killed during the attempted assassination of the former president, Donald Trump, as a family man who served his community and was quick to help friends in need. Comparator was one of the thousands of people who attended the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, part of the Trump's 2024 reelection effort. He died trying to protect his family, according to Governor Josh Shapiro. Pennsylvania State Police confirmed his identity on Sunday. Authorities have identified the gunman in Saturday's attack as a 20-year-old Thomas Matthew Crooks, who was killed by Secret Service agents at the scene after the shooting. The FBI is investigating the attack as an assassination attempt, according to the agency. Shapiro, who directed flags to be flown at half-staff and Comparator's memory, said he spoke to Comparator's wife and 2 daughters on this past Sunday. Corey was just, there in support of the candidate. And I just think that is why when you have these positions of power, there are thousands and thousands and thousands of lives that you have to consider. You have to consider what you say, in particular when you are running for or even occupying the most powerful office for all intents and purposes, in the world. And that is why it's important that you operate with extreme care and that you do not allow for just because you have the power, to be reckless with that power and what you say. And we know that Donald Trump has been both reckless with his power and certainly reckless with his speech. And it incites people to do things that other people will end up being hurt by. So, or in this case, here we have someone who they don't know what the motivation was. They don't know what the motive is as to why he wanted to assassinate the former president. But the shooter himself, 20-year-old, was registered as a Republican. So we have no idea what the motivation of that was. But there were people who were even elected officials who were saying things like President Biden was responsible for what happened. Now, we all know that that couldn't be further from the truth. But it is that kind of rhetoric, that leads to what was experienced Saturday night. And then you have people who are coming on and saying, of course, the President of the United States, as well as Trump, said that we all need to unite the country. We need to unite the country. Didn't really hear him saying we need to tone down the rhetoric, or that he apologizes for any of the rhetoric that he spoke or used or encouraged. So I really don't buy it. I don't buy it as being genuine on his part. I really do hope that this was one of those epiphany moments. I hope that it was one of those moments that it would be a moment of conversion for Donald Trump. Do I believe it? Not for a second. But I hope that I can be proven wrong, that this was a transformational moment for Donald Trump. Sort of like the George Wallace transformational time when he was shot and there was an attempted assassination on his life that left him paralyzed. I hope and pray that there is a conversion in Donald Trump's rhetoric, and certainly in his mindset and in the person that he has demonstrated to be. I hope that that is the case. So, we pray for those families that now have to bury their families after going to a political rally. In the moment of a few seconds where people were there to celebrate their candidate, that in an instant, a celebration turned into a moment of chaos and sadness and grief. In an instant. So as they continue to do the investigation, as they continue to do the analysis, I think that it is extraordinarily important that there is a learning and certainly a teachable moment here. And I think that all of us can glean something from this moment. And I think politically, we have to be able to be to have our disagreements in terms of our political philosophies, to be able to have serious debate without the rhetoric of violence. And of course, there are those who say we have to unite the country. What is it that you are referring to when you say unite the country? What do you really mean when you start talking about unite the country? What's your definition of uniting the country? We have a divided country. We have Republicans on one side, we have Democrats on the other side, we have independents. So the country is divided in terms of their philosophy about government. Unfortunately, it has been poisoned and has been fueled with vitriol that whatever the side is of the spectrum that you're on, that, violence is okay, and it's not okay. Violence is not okay. Might be necessary at times. It might be necessary at times. But I think that we have to get to a point where we can have fierce, intelligent debate about political issues and agendas and ideology without it leading to someone calling someone names or someone suggesting violence. It just has no place in political discord. It absolutely has no place. So, and as I spoke, and I left a little message in one of the stories on my Facebook post about rhetoric. Now, there are people who, as I said, they have platforms, they have radio shows, they may have television programs, and I hear them. And I hear that they are communicating rhetoric that's not founded in facts or real information. So your opinion, you're entitled to your opinion, but you are not entitled to your own set of facts. Whatever the facts are, those of us who have these platforms, and those of you who have larger platforms, you have an extraordinary duty to put the facts out and allow for people to make up their mind and to support or not to support something. But you've got to give people the facts. You've got to give them the truth so that they can have a real opportunity to know what the truth is, and then they decide on whether or not they're going to support or not support a particular thing. What is opinion? I define the word opinion is this. It is a view or judgment about a particular thing or subject that is not necessarily rooted in facts or knowledge. That's what That's what an opinion is. Now, we can have varying opinions or opinions, but you have to have one set of facts. There's only one set of facts. At the end of the day, there's one set of facts where, I'm looking at a computer. The computer has keys, and the computer base is black. And it is a IdeaPad. It's a Lenovo computer, but it is a computer, and it has all those components. Now, I can say that this is a great computer. That's my opinion. That's my observation. Somebody else can say, yes, it's a computer. Yes, it has these, but it's not a great component. That's what an opinion is. The fact is that it is a computer, and now you have two different views about that fact of a computer, how one views its participation or functionality, and how another views its functionality. So opinions have to be rooted in something factual. They can't just be drawn out of the sky and you say that that's my opinion. Your opinion based on what? Based on what facts? Based on what analysis? So that's what opinions are. It is not for you just, saying that the president or saying that Trump, for this matter, did such and such, and you don't have any corroborating evidence to support what you're saying, but this is just how you feel. So you're saying, and you have a platform, and there are people who follow you that will take what you say to heart, which is very important, which is in my opinion, very important reason that you have to make sure that you take care to get the facts right. If you're going to talk about something, you should have prepared factually to deal with whatever it is, and to make sure that you're going to know exactly what you're talking about. Then you can talk about the facts of whatever the subject matter is. These are the facts. Now, this is what my opinion is about that concept or about that particular subject, whatever it is. But the opinion should never be whether the information is true or not. It should always be factual information. Then you can get to the entirety of the problem, of the issue. But I've been hearing some people who have been on these airways for quite some time, and they have a pretty wide range of viewers and listeners. And they make these statements that are not rooted in facts. They're just not rooted in facts. And you just can't take your opinion and peddle your opinion off as though it is a fact. So I say to all of us who have platforms, wherever they are, no matter what your political affiliation is, no matter how frustrated you may be, but you have to be a professional, and you have to operate with character and courage and conscience to maintain a level of civility, as well as to maintain the trust of people who look to you for guidance. Not to say things to be sensational or to be profound in terms of, increasing your audience and that sort of thing, but to be truthful, because what comes out of your mouth will encourage or discourage someone. So you want to make sure that you are telling people the truth. Period. That's what we have to do. All right, let me move on to, we're going to be doing a press conference. You've heard me talk about this investigative story that Channel 2's CBS 2 Chicago, Dorothy Tucker, did on violence against Black women. And I said that this is an effort that has to be led and must be led by Black men to show our women and to show our girls and to show our sisters that men actually care. Men actually care. So we're going to be doing a press conference on Friday, July the 19th at 10 a.m. at the Markham Courthouse. And we want for there to be 200, at minimum, 200 Black men to be there to call attention to our local, to our state, and to our federal agencies that we have a state of an emergency, Black women being violated more than any other ethnic group, and the government has to put forth a strategy. But in order for that to happen, we're going to have to apply serious pressure. It's not going to happen if we don't apply pressure. So Friday, July 19th, 10 o'clock in front of the Markham Courthouse. Please meet us there. It is going to be a number of different Black men associated with different organizations across our organizational lines. But this is mainly in general for Black men to show up so that we can be in numbers to show to our sisters, to our wives, to our daughters, to our neighbors, that we are standing. We're standing in the gap, we're standing on the wall, and we're going to demand, and we're going to make sure that something is done, that people who are walking around the streets of the city of Chicago and the county of Cook and the state of Illinois, women who are Black, that they can go to and fro safely like other ethnic groups. Last year, 277 women were assaulted going to the grocery store. Going to the grocery store, 277 women were assaulted. 162 out in the park. 47 women, get this, 47 women attacked at church. 47. 769 women attacked on public transportation. Those are just some of the numbers. Disturbing. Where we, or our community, our women, are number one in every negative category. That sends a message that either attacking a Black woman is considered to be a low risk crime because there's not going to be a lot of resources about holding people accountable and making sure that people get home safely. Something has to be done. Something has to be done. I'm disappointed that not a single black male representative, whether it been at the municipality level or the state level or the county level, not a single black male took to a camera to say, we are going to stand as protectors, as advocates for the women of our community, for the black women of our community, and black girls of our community. Now, in the wake of 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago now, someone by the name of James Wetz out of Flossmoor took it upon himself to throw a large cup of soda in the face of the Cook County State's attorney. Now, we don't know whether he knew her or not. I don't believe that he did know her, but that's not what's relative, and that's what's not important. What is important is that this young man, which was a white male, 34 years of age, thought that it was okay to verbally and physically, by throwing a pop in the face, attack a black woman. Now, this is not to put anybody against anybody, but we have to call it what it is. Here, Dorothy Tucker did this investigative story. She did this investigative story. And in this investigative story, she interviewed a young lady, a young mother. She interviewed her. And as a result of, in the interview, a few months later, as she was putting it together, and when it came out, the young lady, her name was Sierra Jameson. This will be shocking to you. If you haven't seen it, it will be shocking to you. Take a look at this.
I get in my car every day and I'm concerned about what will happen to me. You know, I don't know if today's the day somebody want to carjack me. I don't know if today's the day that they want to rob me. I don't know. And that's scary about being in Chicago and being a black woman, because we are not protected.
Consider a mundane trip to the gas station. In 2022, 66 black women were carjacked or robbed at the pump.
I was filling up my gas for the week. It was over the weekend. I was filling up my gas for the week, for the work week.
Sierra Jameson was one of them.
I had a young gentleman come up to me and asked me, did I smoke? I said, no, sir, I do not smoke.
She wasn't driving this car. She was driving her prize 2018 black Jeep Wrangler. That's what the man wanted.
He was like literally coming right here. Bitch, give me your keys.
Even though he had a kitchen knife, this single mother and aspiring nurse with a 6-year-old son with autism said no.
What made me say no? Because I observed him. I could tell that he was really, I could tell that he really didn't know what he was doing because he was flinchy, he was nervous.
She also saw 2 other women nearby who had her back and a bat.
So I'm doing this. I said, give me your bat, give me your bat. So he did me like this. He let go, then he ran.
Jamison was naturally relieved, but then she got angry.
It was a few men here after the incident saying that this young man was standing here the whole day.
But he didn't attack anyone until she came along.
Not sure because I'm a young black woman, he wasn't targeting me. I know he didn't target the man that came up and through here. I guess he feel like I was gonna be vulnerable, be like, huh, get the key, but no, he got the wrong female.
We need to take you back to Sierra Jamison's story. Remember, she survived the attempted carjacking.
I'm grateful. I went home to my son. I thank God every day that I'm here because it could have went a different way.
Jamison went home to her son on that day. But less than a month after this interview, she was the victim of another crime. Only this time, she would never see her son again.
We're honoring her legacy. We're honoring her life.
Jamison was murdered just days after celebrating her 30th birthday, found strangled inside her garage, her body lying next to her Jeep Wrangler. The family released balloons in her memory.
My niece is no longer here in flesh, but my niece is always in here in spirit.
So that part of that report, for me, that part of that report is a gut-wrenching part of the report. It is gut-wrenching, and it really, watching the entire investigative report that was done by CBS 2's Dorothy Tucker, and she released this report in January, and it has been shown in different settings, and there's been specials about it. But what was more astonishing to me, but there were no black men in public office that made any kind of statement or took any kind of initiative to stand up or to even call black men to say, we have got to call on our government. This is a state of an emergency. That black women are at risk. Black young ladies, black girls are at risk, at high risk, when they leave their homes. At high risk. This is why we must do this on Friday, and we must do it to make sure that we have the presence of black men in these numbers. That's why we said we wanted to have 200 minimum. If we could have more, great, but we certainly don't want to have less than 200 black men to show up for a press conference to call on our local, state, and federal agencies to deal with this state of emergency and putting forth policy and a strategy to deal with why and not to just deal with why, but to turn this around, to finding answers, to turning it around, to make sure that black women are just as safe as any other ethnic group. It makes no sense that you have a minority of the population, but they are the majority victims of all of the crimes. Now, when I was talking about this earlier, it was brought up that we know who most of the perpetrators are. No, we don't know who most of the perpetrators are. And the reason why we don't know who most of the perpetrators are is because most of them have not been resolved. So we don't know who the majority of the perpetrators are, because it was brought up and said that, well, we know that the majority of the perpetrators are probably black. No, we don't know that. And even if that were the case, that's not what is important. What is important is that we have to do something about women who are being attacked and making women safe, leaving their homes, going to the grocery store, going to the park, going to church, going to work, taking their children back and forth. We have to do something about mitigating that, stopping that. And so that the solving of the crime, the solving of the assault is another thing. But what we're talking about here is stopping women from being assaulted. And if we can put the resources and the emphasis on stopping women from being assaulted, we won't have to solve. If we can stop them from being assaulted, we won't have to solve them being assaulted. So let's do the work on the front end so that we don't have to do the resolve on the back end. So that's where we should be focused on. Let's mitigate the elimination of these attacks, these sexual assaults that women represent. I mean, here are some numbers. These are some startling numbers, right? Black women represent 34% of all kidnappings, 35% of assaults, 38% of batteries, 40% of rape victims, 52% of human trafficking, all here in the city of Chicago. Now, this study went back and they studied 25 years of police reports. 25 years that they did an exhaustive analysis. And what they found was these statistics for Black women. So that's why I am pleading with you, brothers, to join us. We're going to be doing a Zoom meeting tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. You can go on my Facebook page and you can get the Zoom meeting link to join the Zoom meeting at 6 o'clock. At 6 o'clock, we're going to be making our final plans for the press conference. And it's going to be a general. When I say general, we know about, these other areas where women are missing, and these unresolved crimes against Black women that many groups have been working on for years. But what we're doing is what this story has done, what the story has done was it has capsulized this and captured it in a way that it is riveting to the consciousness that we have got to take a stance to call upon government to deal with a huge problem, which is why we have government in place, because government can deal with these huge issues that we have. So what we are calling for, is for Black men to show up so that we can put a demand on our local, state, and federal agencies to act and to put the resources to act in a major, major way to deal with this carnage of violence against Black women in this press conference. So all of the organizations, tap into all of your churches, all of your mosques, temples, whatever your faith commitment is. As a Black man, we need to stand in solidarity for our women and our girls, to let them know that we see it. We see them, and we're not going to stand by. We are going to demand that something happens by the very people who represent us. That is what we are going to be doing on Friday, July the 19th. And again, we're having our final planning meeting on tomorrow night, July 16th at 6 o'clock. And you can go on my Facebook page and you can get the Zoom meeting link. And so we have to carry this on, and we're going to continue doing this. So that's why we're doing this, and I'm spending this time on this, because it is so, so important. So important. Even Kim Fox, who was reluctant to talk about her experiences before, her sexual assaults before. She was sexually assaulted as a child, sexually assaulted in school. And here she is, walking on a morning walk in her own community. I think they said that she was, a few houses from her home. That this individual would drive up to her and shout out something to her, and then reverse his vehicle, throws a drink into her face, and almost hits her with his truck. I can't get that out of my head, that attacking Black women, based on these numbers, based on these analysis, based on these reports, attacking Black women is a low-risk crime. Again, attacking Black women, I guess most people who do this, maybe they think, oh, nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to do anything about it. I got a stronger chance of getting away with this than I do attacking a white woman or a Hispanic woman. But if I attack a Black woman, chances are I'm not going to get caught. Now, I'm speculating now, but based on the numbers as they exist, it is clear that Black women are 30% victims of all crimes reported. That is a shocking number. Excuse me, and a shocking reality that Black women lead the leaderboards in violence against Black women. Now, we don't wish violence on anybody, right? We don't subscribe to violence being perpetrated on anybody. So, and if that being the case, we certainly don't subscribe of it happening to Black women, and then it's just seemingly that it is on a low level of priorities. We have to lift the priority to making it a top level of priority by our local, state, and public officials. And if our local, state, and public officials don't do anything about it, we have to, as men, do something about it. We have to do something about it as men. And the only way that I know that we are able to force things is we have to do it in mass numbers. And when we do it in mass numbers, they cannot ignore the issue. It must be done in mass numbers. If we show up and it's just a few of us out there, they might answer a few questions of a reporter that may ask them a couple of questions, but they're not going to do that. So again, tomorrow at 6 o'clock, we're going to be answering questions and making sure that we formulate the press. And then on Friday, July 19th, we gather at the Markham Courthouse. And I am just praying, brothers, I'm praying that those of you who tune in to this program will get the men whom you know, whether they're in your household, whether they're in different organizations, and ask them to come out to support Black women. That's what we're looking for you to do. It's so very, very, very important. Very important. We're continuing our support in Flossmoor for our Flossmoor family. Tonight, they are having a board meeting. And that board meeting, 2 of the 10 by 10 to win committee people are going to be speaking at the board meeting. And I have called for all of those of us who can and will to be there tonight and to be in support of Andrea Perry, who is a Flossmoor resident, and she's a member of the 10 by 10 to win Voting Bloc. Pam Jackson is also a resident of Flossmoor. And let's see, who else? Kevin Dorsey, who is a resident of Flossmoor, who just recently stepped down off of the commission in light of some things that has been brought to light, that he decided that he would step down off the commission because the commission was not living true to what it said. So that is that's that. All right. So if you can be a part, we really have to do this, man. We uh, we the people must do this. We the people must do this. I had last week, and I'm going to repeat it again this week. I'm meeting with him on Thursday. That we have got to do things together. We, as a body and community of Black people, in order for us to liberate our communities, we've got to work together. There is no other way out for us. There is no other way up for us other than to meet ourselves and connect ourselves together. Individualism is a very toxic cancer that cannot be healed. Individualism is a toxic cancer that there is no cure for. There's no cure for it. What the cure is for is that we come together in mass numbers. And as we come together in mass numbers, that we unify ourselves just as any other union. The only difference is we will be the largest union of Black voters independently. And I guarantee you that we will make the people within the Democratic Party be more respectful of our communities and be more deliverance of our communities. That is what mass struggle is all about. That's what mass struggle is all about. 2 weeks ago, after the debate, Pastor Otis Moss III, who is the senior pastor at the Trinity United Church of Christ, gave one of the most riveting, comprehensive call to action where we're all saying the same thing, but we're not doing the same. And so when I saw this message, and it was sent to me, when I saw it, I asked for an audience or asked for a meeting with Pastor Moss, which we're going to meet on Thursday at 4 o'clock. We're going to be meeting on Thursday because we have got to break the cycle. We've got to break the cycle of individualism. We've got to break the cycle of, you get yours, I get mine. We've got to break that cycle because that does not help our community. It does not help us advance Black issues as we need them. And we need them addressed in a mighty, mighty way. Joe Biden is doing a good job. We need more investments because here in Chicago, 47% unemployment in Black males 18 to 25. How do you expect there to be real public safety when you have that kind of carnage? You have that kind of unemployment. You cannot expect that you're going to have a safe community with 47% unemployment in the most vulnerable ages between 18 and 25. 40% unemployment as well. Yeah, 47%. So we've got to work together. Take a look at this. I played it last week, and I'm airing it this week. I think, and one of the reasons why I do that, and will continue to do it, is because I'm not interested in being an entertainer. I have no interest in being an entertainer. My interest is to get the information, to get us informed, and that we take action based on the necessity and based on the revelation of what it is that we must be doing that we haven't done. That's what we have to do. Take a look at Otis Moss. This is his speech.
This past Tuesday, on Tuesday night, I was watching a debate. Yeah, I kind of felt the same way when I was watching the debate, the way some of you all just responded. But God placed something on my heart that I would like to share with everyone here and those who are online with us today. Politicians never do the right thing unless a moral witness, a prophetic wing, or an ethical enclave stand before them and demand change. Abraham Lincoln did not free the slaves because he felt like it, but he was forced into glory by the moral witness of the likes of Frederick Douglass. FDR did not create the New Deal because it was a good idea, but he was forced into glory by the moral witness of people who demanded action during the Great Depression. Lyndon Baines Johnson did not sign the Civil Rights Bill and the Civil Rights Act because it was a nice idea, but he was forced into glory by the work of Martin Luther King Jr., John Lewis, and Fannie Lou Hamer, and others. Unfortunately, in our American political system, candidates and parties are beholden to special interest. But never forget, we the people have power. We the people, black people, kissed by nature's sun, have power. We have power in our vote. We have power in organizing. We have power with our pocketbook. We have power with our voice, and we have spiritual power connected to our faith. Black people have historically saved America from itself. Black people have historically been a moral witness demanding this democracy include all who yearn to breathe free. I believe the choice this November is not between two candidates, but two visions of this nation. One vision romanticizes the Confederate mythology that was birthed from the antebellum South. Another vision still sees America as the yet-to-be United States of America. I cannot support any vision. You can vote for whoever you want to, but I cannot support any vision that speaks to making America great again, because my conscience and my soul tell me when a person states America with the past tense language was great, I must speak up and say, what year are you talking about? Was it before I could vote, or was it a year I was considered nothing more as chattel? Was it a year when women did not have the right to vote, or was it the year before unions had been organized? I cannot support anyone's false nostalgia of white supremacy. I believe democracy is on the ballot for some, and I understand it. The only issue is the horror, tragedy, pain, and destruction of human thriving in the occupied territory we call Gaza. For others, it is Gaza, the Congo, the Sudan, and Haiti. But I say to us all, we must look at all issues, foreign and domestic. For the question before us is, what will this country be? Not for our children, not for our grandchildren, but for our great-grandchildren. We must, as a church, and when I speak of the church, I said we must, as a church, the black church collectively, not churches that just have black people in them. I'm talking about the black church of Frederick Douglass, the black church of Harriet Tubman, the black church of W.E.B. Du Bois and the souls of black folk, the black church of A. Philip Randolph, the black church of Ida B. Wells, the black church of Ella Baker, the black church of James Lawson, the black church of Willie Barrow, the black church of Jesse Jackson, the black church of Jeremiah Wright, the black church of James Cone, and the black church of Martin Luther King Jr. The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, is will we stand up for the 295,000 people who die as a result of poverty every year? The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, is will we speak for the 87 million people who are uninsured in this nation? The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, will we stand up for people such as members in this congregation who have to decide whether to pay their rent or purchase prescription drugs? The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, will we stand with our union sisters and brothers who are under attack by corporations who want to outlaw unions? For those who do not know, unions ended child labor. Unions created the 40-hour work week. Unions created the 8-hour work day. Unions provided unemployment benefits, workers' compensation, and your retirement benefits. That is because of the work of unions. The question for us today, since democracy is on the ballot, will we fight for HBCUs? They are being attacked across this nation, where conservative legislatures want the land that is our historically black colleges sit upon. They are coming after North Carolina A&T. They're coming after North Carolina Central University. They're coming after Florida A&M. They're coming after Alabama A&M, Jackson State, Albany State, Fort Valley Southern, any state institution that is a historically black college. Since democracy is on the ballot, will women, let me say it again, will women, not men, will women, not men, but will women have the autonomy to make medical decisions about their body, and will people of faith be present to offer compassion, love, prayer, and support regardless of their decision? Will we fight to ensure that every returning citizen has full citizenship rights after they've served their time in prison? Since democracy is on the ballot, will we seek to abolish the penal system of incarceration that is destroying our community? Since democracy is on the ballot, will we vote to protect our right to vote across this nation? Conservative legislators are passing laws to restrict voting rights and gerrymandering districts to dilute black political power. Since democracy is on the ballot, will we fight to protect this planet as we are seeing the effects of climate change right here in Chicago? Since democracy is on the ballot, you must know there are 46 judicial appointments the next president will make that will reshape voting rights, unionization, homelessness, and even possibly outlaw historically black colleges. Since democracy is on the ballot, I'm not a one-issue voter, but I'm a voter who votes to protect black issues. Since democracy is on the ballot, I'm asking today, right now, everyone in this village, if you are a registered voter, if you are an organizer, if you are part of a union, if you lead a block club, if you are a local activist, it's time for us to get together as a community and collectively as a church and do what our ancestors have done generation after generation and save this nation from itself. Democracy is on the ballot. Now, I said what I said, and I ain't taking it back.
Otis Moss said what he said and is not taking it back. The question becomes to us, are we going to do what we need to do? This is not about personality, and we cannot make this about personality. This is about the principle of making sure that what we now know as our democratic norms, that they're improved to work better. Not Project 2025 that wants to do away with public education, wants to do away with the Department of Education. That's what the plan is for Republicans if they take the presidency. Certainly if they take Congress, we need to defeat the now Trump J.D. Vance, because he just announced his vice president candidate of J.D. Vance. So we need to defeat Trump and the J.D. Vance candidates. And we also need to take back the House, and we need to take it back to where we have a supermajority so that we can unravel some of this and neutralize some of those people who are just the extreme part of the Republican Party. Because it is the extremist part of the Republican Party that have neutralized those people who really want to debate and they really want to try to resolve problems, but they can't because the extremist of the Republican Party has taken control of it along with Donald Trump. Now, so I'm trying to pull up this article where Trump announced, here it is, we'll find it. Yeah, we will, I'm trying to see this. Okay, here it is. All right, yeah. So, yeah, Donald Trump picks J.D. Vance out of Ohio, another extremist. So, and that goes without saying. I don't think we need to do a whole lot of talking about them, but what we do need to talk about is what we have to do. Now, and I'm going to try to get to some of it, but I think that it is important that we understand what this means in terms of making sure that Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris is reelected. And this whole nonsense about Joe Biden having, bad performance and so-called cognitive declination. I mean, I can play clip after clip after clip after clip after clip after clip of Donald Trump's gaffes that could go on for about 5 or 6 minutes. And I probably will do that on a future podcast. But I want to get focused on what it is that we have to do rather than trying to make somebody look bad that already looks bad. So, and then, these elitists like Barack Obama, James Carville, David Axelrod, and I believe it's David Bluff. These elitists on the Democratic side needs to be quiet and stop trying to dictate to us from that elitist group that you represent, which is where Barack Obama and and Michelle Obama are over there with the elitist group, because that's where they are, in my opinion. To suggest that Joe Biden needs to step aside. Here is a man who if the polls are saying that Joe Biden, since the debate, and we're now 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks later, there has only been a 1% shift, 1% shift in the polls. That is still virtually tied. If you're with polls, it is also saying and showing that there is a 15% jump in terms of support for Biden, Harris, in the Black community. So we can go through all of those algorithms. We can go through all of those stages and all of those numbers. And I can go through all of them, even the historical numbers that shows that where people will tend to vote for. And for all of these confused Black people who just want to make noise, they don't want to do any real research. They don't want to do any real study. They don't want to look at the facts about what the Biden-Harris administration has done state by state, the investments that they've done state by state, the investment that they've done here in Chicago or here in this state. The $46 million that'll be coming to this state, $8.5 billion in private sector, $16 billion in public sector, and $2 billion in funding for the affordable, reliable, high-speed internet, $11 billion announced for transportation and so forth and so on. And those numbers, if you go state by state, and I can go state by state of what this administration has passed 4 landmark pieces of legislation that's driving billions of dollars into states that are creating millions and millions of opportunities, thousands of opportunities, and certainly going to create industries going into these states. And we need to make sure that we have them coming to the south side of Chicago and to the west side of Chicago, bringing thousands of jobs, hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue for the local government and for our state government. So this is the kind of growth and investment that we have to protect. So what I'm telling you is that these kinds of investments, so what we're talking about, the $16 billion that are going to HBCUs, if Republicans take the election and the Republicans take control of the Senate and the House, these will be rolled back. These kind of investments will be rolled back, like from the infrastructure, $15.7 billion in the infrastructure bill that is bringing 488 projects to Illinois, $11.1 billion in transportation, $6.7 billion in roads and bridges, $2.9 billion public transportation, $494 million in for airports. This is all for Illinois. $15.7 billion in the infrastructure, $11.1 billion in transportation, $1.6 billion in high-speed internet, $982 million in clean water, $249 million in clean transportation, $239 million in clean pollution cleanup, $1.4 billion in in strengthening communities' readiness for climate impact. $8.4 billion in commitment to invest in 21st century industries, $4.9 billion in clean power projects, $416 million in clean energy manufacturing, $1 billion in public funding for the reduction of lead pipes. This is just for Illinois. That kind of funding will be rolled back. Those kind of fundings for those projects will be rolled back because they will take all of those dollars and give tax cuts to the rich. There will be very little investments for the working family. So we need to make sure that we understand the gravity of what is about to take place. Let me give you an example. In Louisiana, because Louisiana's Black community and what is the population of the Black community in the state of Louisiana?
According to Statista, population distribution of Louisiana 2021 by race and ethnicity. In 2021, 31.2% of Louisiana residents were Black or African American.
Almost a third. Almost a third. But guess what? In Louisiana, they have a supermajority of Republicans that control the legislature. And because they have a supermajority, they don't have to work with the Democrats. They can do what they want to do, and they are doing what they want to do. Because in Louisiana, only about 37%, only about 37% of the electorate turned out to vote. And of that 37%, about 19% determine who the governor is. Now, the population of Louisiana is about 5 million. And only about 14 or 15% of the electorate determine who the governor would be for the next 4 years because people didn't show up to go vote. So now, since they didn't go vote, the Republicans have a supermajority and they're doing everything that they want to do because they don't have to work with the Democrats. They don't have to work with the Democrats. They have the supermajority. So they don't need Democratic support for anything that they want to do. And they're doing everything running roughshod in Louisiana. And so since people didn't go out to vote, you now will have to live and comply with whatever it is that the supermajority is passing. and you can scream to the rafters, and there is nothing that you can do about it. If we operate with that kind of apathy, we cannot operate with that kind of apathy. What I am saying to you, please make sure that you share this podcast. Share this with your social media outlets in swing states, and certainly everywhere else, because we're telling you exactly what is coming, which is exactly what is happening in the state of Louisiana. That's essentially what is taking place. I mean, the population of Louisiana, I mean, you're talking about 4.5 million people, 4.5 million people, and less than 15% of the entire population. So that's about 600,000 people, a little more than that, decided who is running the state. So 600,000 people made the decision for the other 4 million people in the state, because people didn't show up to vote. And they're going to feel it, because the supermajority is doing everything that they want to do. If that happens with the Republicans in our national election, then poor people can forget it. Now, we got to get poor people to the polls. Poor people represent about 40% of the electorate. You heard Otis Moss, who talks about the 292,000 poor people who die from poverty in this country every year. 800 people a day die from poverty in this country. Not from gunshots, not from bullets. 800 people a day die from poverty in these United States of America. We got to make sure and do all that we can to make sure that they get to the polls and that they vote. Now, it is important, it is critical that I'm not asking for anybody to fall in love with a party. I'm not asking for anybody to fall in love with a candidate. What I am simply saying is that when I look at what between the two candidates, when I look at the investments in Black people and Black issues, in Black communities, $16.5 billion in funding to HBCUs, unbundling contracts and allowing for Black businesses, applications to quadruple under this administration, $69 billion in contracts going to Black-owned businesses, Black-operated businesses from this administration. The previous administration bundled the contracts so that small businesses could not compete. Only the large corporations and the large companies could bid on the contracts because they were bundled. And this administration broke that up and unbundled the contract where smaller businesses could compete for contracts. When I think of the investment in the child credit tax program that this administration has gotten done, the student loan debt forgiveness from this administration that will set the path for building generational wealth for millions of Black families. Hands down, it's the Biden-Harris administration that we must reelect. Now, and then we have the opportunity to make sure that those investments that are being made through this administration, and I assure you, we also have to make sure that we give Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris a majority, a super majority, because the Republicans are going to do everything to be obstructive. So we have to elect Joe Biden, and we also have to make sure that we elect a supermajority in the Congress. We have to give them 60 senators, and we have to take the majority back in the House. And those opportunities are there in those swing states. So reach out to the people in those states and please get them to go to the polls. In Louisiana, South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi, Kentucky. We've got to get Arizona. We have the opportunity to do this, to give to Joseph R. Biden what he needs to further the advancement that he has started along with the Vice President, Kamala Harris. These are the real issues that we should be focused on. Not whether some of the other nonsense. I'm not even going to go into it because I want you to stay focused. I want us to stay focused on that is important. That's what I want us to be focused on. And what we need to be focused on is making sure that we send this president, this current president, back for a second term. Look, the Bible says, the scripture says to us that every man and every woman, has an appointed day. That's what the Bible says. That's what it says, that we all have an appointed day. Every one of us. And no one can make the determination on who will be and who will not be. This whole thing about Joe Biden, will he finish out a 4 years? Well, unfortunately, Joseph Biden is 80 years old. This weekend, we lost several people who had not made 21, had not made 25, some teenagers last weekend So it is not up to us to determine who it is or when someone will be or not to be. And you should be very careful. And I said this to my former co-host. Be very careful of trying to prognosticate someone's the end for somebody else, because it might be you. You can sit there and you can, be like Haman, where you could be hung by the gallows that you set for somebody else. So I would be very careful at predicting and determining who is going to be and who is not going to be. So again, let's be focused on the things that we need to be focused on. And that is making sure that we do what we need to do and making sure that people get to the polls. We will be the difference maker. We will be the difference maker. The Black community will be the difference maker. That's why I think it's important for us to build voting blocks. Here in Chicago and Cook County in the state of Illinois, we are in a very unique, or I should say rare, position. We have large swaths of Black population. That is not common in the rest of the United States of America. That's not common. What we have here, the large numbers of Black people in Chicago and Cook County and around these areas, the concentration of those numbers where we could actually take full control, meaning that we can impact on a serious level of how government is actually moving on behalf of the Black community. It could be transformative. That's why building the Black independent voting bloc is so important, that we can make the Democratic Party of Illinois be far more respectful and deliberate and delivering for and to the agenda and issues of the Black community. When you have the power to determine a person's position, when you have the power to determine a person's position, not just one person, but multiple people, whether it be a city council person, whether it be a mayor, whether it be a Cook County commissioner, whether it be a Cook County board president, whether it be a governor, a lieutenant governor, a state rep, a state senator. We have the power available to us if we just organize ourselves together. Now, why do I say we have it available? Because we don't have the power. Right now, we do not have the power to control politics. we could have the power if we build the independent Black voting bloc. Let me give you an example of what that is. 10 by 10 to win is a Black independent voting bloc where we are working to build. The goal is to get to 1 million, is to build the greatest, largest independent voting bloc in Illinois, that we will be able to take control of our governments here in Chicago, Cook County, and in the state of Illinois. If we were to establish a voting bloc of 200,000 people, if we had done that in just the 20 wards that we live in the city of Chicago, not counting the suburbs, the southern suburbs, the western suburbs, but I just want to show you, because all of those areas matter, and we want to build across all of our communal lines, all of our district lines, all of our ward lines, all of our village lines. But I just want to show you something. If we had 200,000 people, 10,000 people from each of the wards that we largely live in, and we in the city of Chicago live in largely 20 wards in Chicago. And if we had 10,000 people that were a part of the bloc from each one of those wards, 10,000 times 20 is 200,000 people. In this last primary election, which we have got to understand that the primary election is very important and we've got to impact it going forward. We only had a 22% turnout in the primary election. 22% in the city of Chicago. About 16, 17%, something like that, in the suburbs. If we had our block to where we had 200,000 people and we slated our candidates in the respective offices, state representative, state senator, right? Congress, and we had all of those. Guess what would have happened? We would have basically swept the election, because 10,000 people and we had our candidates, we were working our candidates with a strong ground game, and we were mobilizing votes. Now, we had 10,000 people, right, in these respective areas. And our 10,000 people, we had determined how we're going to vote and who it was that we were going to support in each one of our districts. So that's 200,000 votes that we know exactly who it is that we're going to support. 200,000. That 200,000, we would have worked campaigns. That's a strong ground game that we've been able to work, and we would have been able to galvanize others to support our candidates. We would have all but swept the primary elections. And the primary elections are our general elections. Primary elections are our general elections. Because what's happening, what happens in the primary are typically what those people go on to win the general, because most of them don't have an opponent. So this is where we have to get more strategic. We have to get more strategic. Now, let's assume that we have 200,000 people in the voting bloc. 200,000 people that paid $5 a month contributing to the campaign fund. 200,000 people paying $5 a month. That's $1 million a month, $12 million a year. 250,000 people is $1.25 million a month, $15 million a year. If we did 300,000 people at $5 a month, that's $1.5 million a year, times 12 is $18 million a year. That's $18 million that we have to support our candidates and to build strong ground games that we don't have to go to anybody. We control the political infrastructure. That is power that we don't have right now, that we have available to us if we organized ourselves to do it. So I am asking you to go to the website. First, I want you to do is to text 10 by 10 to win. All right, text 10x10 to win in the chat. You'll see it there. I want you to do it so that you can get into the text alert, and then you could be a part of the meetings. We have Zoom meetings. We're going to be starting to have in-person meetings on 108th and Halsted. And we're going to move those meetings to Friday nights as we're going to start to continue to building and organizing. So, but look at this. That's enormous power that we can have. Not for any one person. This is not for any one person. This is a political action committee where we have to report to the state. And when they see when the current people who are in political office, when they see that level of organizing, I guarantee you that they will start to governing very differently towards this body, this community, not towards the 200,000 people, but towards the entire Black community, because the 200,000 people are people who are reflective of the Black community, and we are working on behalf of the entirety of our community. So as we work to lift the people in our community out of poverty, and we work to have people thriving, the governor, the mayor, the alder people, the state representatives, we're not falling in love with any personality. What I'm saying to you is that we now become a force for more transactional public policies that infuse investment and attract for our communities. And when our communities are thriving and when our communities are doing better, every other community is going to do better. When you have more people who are participating in the economic upward mobility the people who are already at the top, meaning those corporations that have all the products and the goods and the services that we buy, those people will start to do better because we have more people working. And as we do better, everybody else does better. So we have to function differently. We have to have a different mindset because we continue to say we are doing for self. This is how we do for self. First, we organize ourselves together so that we could force those people who are in the positions of political office that are making decisions over our lives now make decisions with us at the table. And they will not make decisions that are counter or antithetical to our communities that we don't want, because we have the power and the understanding of how this game of political power actually works. When we do that, there is no failure of us being able to make sure that we get everything that we want and everything that we need. This fuels reparations, which comes in many different forms. Part of reparations is making sure that we have strong economic development in our communities where thousands of people have access to that economic development and are benefiting from it. Part of reparations is making sure we have strong public education institutions in our neighborhood that function just like Walter Payton or what is it? I can't think of the name of the school. So we have to make sure that this happens, but we can make sure none of that happens if we don't organize. If we don't organize, we cannot make sure that any of that happens. All right, listen, that's going to do it for tonight. I'm going to be coming back, and we are going to continue this conversation. We're going to continue this conversation. We have to continue this conversation. We have to hear it over and over, and we have to talk about it. We have to work together. Please go to the website, 10by10towin.com, .org, 10x10 to win, 10x10towin.org. Text 10x10 to the number 855-909-1385. Let's get together and build our own independent voting bloc that we make all of the decisions on who's going to represent us, who's going to be our candidates. We can, as we build, we will be able to select and slate candidates from our own. We have our own internal process of electing people who are looking to run for offices for public schools, offices for the board, offices for council people, mayors, governors and lieutenant governors, congress people, senators. We will have serious power to reshape politics once we organize. We cannot do it any other way. All right, so that's going to do it for this Monday night's edition of the People Show on intellectualradio.com. Make sure you join us right here. Please go to the YouTube channel, look for Mark Wallace, The People's Show, or type in Mark Wallace, The People's Show, and subscribe to our channel. It's free. There is no charge. We are really more interested in making sure that we connect our communities together so that we can inform our communities, we can dialogue and discuss, and more importantly, we can collaborate with our community. You'll see us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. Join us every Monday night right here on intellectualradio.com. Hey, we certainly thank Brother Earl Winfrey for this opportunity. We'll see you next week, right back here, same place, same time.